Her sister convinces her to drop out of college to save money, but years later she learns the sister used those funds to build her own empire. Now she must reclaim what was stolen, or lose herself to bitterness. I think you should drop out. Those words didn't come from a stranger or a counselor. They came from my sister sitting across the kitchen table, stirring her tea like she hadn't just shattered my world. I stared at her, waiting for a laugh, a wink, some sign she was joking. But she wasn't. You're drowning in debt, she said, her voice soft, almost maternal. You're exhausted. You're barely sleeping. What's the point of pushing through if it's breaking you? I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream. But she kept talking, painting a picture of relief, of stability, of a future where I wasn't constantly chasing tuition deadlines and skipping meals to afford textbooks. You could move in with me, she offered. We'll use the money you saved to build something better. Together. Her words wrapped around me like a warm blanket. I was tired. So tired. And she sounded so sure. That night I sat on the edge of my dorm bed, surrounded by boxes and half-packed bags. My textbooks lay in a neat stack, untouched. I ran my fingers over the cover of my psychology book, the one I'd saved up for by working double shifts at the diner. It felt heavier than usual. I didn't sleep. The next morning I withdrew from college. Moving into her guest room felt surreal. Her house was quiet, clean, and smelled faintly of lavender. She had a routine. Morning jogs, green smoothies, phone calls with people I didn't know. I tried to settle in, telling myself this was temporary. I found a part-time job at a local bookstore, shelving novels and ringing up customers with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. She was kind at first. Supportive. She made dinner, asked about my day, reminded me that this was just a pause, not a stop. I believed her. I had to. But weeks turned into months and something shifted. She started dressing differently. Sleek blazers, expensive heels, handbags I'd only seen in magazines. Her phone buzzed constantly and she'd step out to take calls, her voice low and clipped. Weekends disappeared into meetings and networking events. I asked questions but she waved them off. Just business stuff, she'd say, smiling. Nothing you need to worry about. I told myself not to pry. She was helping me. She'd sacrificed her space, her time. I owed her patience. But the unease grew. One night I came home early from work. Her car was in the driveway but the house was quiet. I walked in, dropped my bag and heard her voice from the study. I'm telling you, the investment paid off. I used the tuition money, yes, all of it. It was risky but look at us now. I froze. She laughed, light and carefree. She thinks I'm still figuring things out. Poor thing. She's so trusting. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there listening as the pieces fell into place. The tuition money. My future. Her empire. I backed away, heart pounding, and locked myself in the guest room. My mind raced. Had I misunderstood? Was she exaggerating? But the tone in her voice, the pride, it wasn't guilt. It was triumph. The next morning she was cheerful as ever. Made pancakes. Asked if I wanted to go shopping. I nodded, numb, playing along while my thoughts spiraled. At work I couldn't focus. I shelved books blindly, missed cues from customers, forgot to clock out. My manager pulled me aside, concerned. I mumbled something about stress and promised to do better. That night I tried to apply for night classes. I missed learning. I missed feeling like I was building something. But when I mentioned it to her, she frowned. Why distract yourself, she said. We're working on the bigger picture. You'll see. Her words felt like chains. I started journaling. Not just thoughts but timelines. Dates. Conversations. I needed clarity. I needed proof that I wasn't imagining things. She grew more distant. Her success became louder. Interviews, photo shoots, articles. I watched her smile on magazine covers, talking about humble beginnings and strategic risks. My name was never mentioned. One afternoon I bumped into an old classmate at the grocery store. She asked why I'd left college. I gave her the usual answer. Money, stress, temporary break. She nodded, then said, "Your sister's doing amazing. Heard she got a big investment early on. Lucky timing, huh?" Lucky timing. I smiled, but inside something cracked. Back home I opened my laptop and started digging. Old emails, bank statements, receipts. I remembered transferring my tuition refund to her account. I found the confirmation. I found the date. It matched the timeline of her first business launch. I sat there staring at the screen, the truth staring back. She hadn't just used the money. She'd built her success on it. And she'd never told me. I confronted her that evening. Calmly. Quietly. Did you use my tuition money for your business? He blinked, then smiled. It worked out, didn't it? I didn't respond. He shrugged. You were struggling. I saw an opportunity. I took it. You're not mad, are you? I didn't answer. I just walked away. That night I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in the dark, staring at the lamp she'd placed in the guest room. It flickered slightly, casting shadows across the walls. I realized then that the sacrifice I made wasn't just about college. It was about trust. About believing someone had my back when they were already planning their climb. And now I had a choice. Stay quiet. Or start climbing. The silence of that night never left me. I had walked away from her casual shrug, her dismissive smile, and the hollow reassurance that it worked out. But the truth gnawed at me, and as the years passed, it only grew sharper. I kept working odd jobs. Bookstore shifts, receptionist desks, tutoring sessions, anything that paid the bills. My life became a patchwork of survival, while hers transformed into something dazzling. She opened offices in the city, hired staff, and appeared in glossy magazines. I saw her face on billboards, her name in headlines, her voice on radio interviews. She spoke about vision and strategy, never once mentioning the sacrifice that had fueled it. I watched from the sidelines, confused and quietly resentful. Every success of hers felt like a reminder of what I had lost. She never brought up the tuition money again, and I never asked. But the silence between us was heavy, filled with unspoken truths. One afternoon while running errands, I bumped into a former colleague of hers at a cafe. He was cheerful, chatty, and eager to talk about her achievements. She's brilliant, he said, sipping his coffee. Started it all with a lucky windfall. Right place, right time. That word, windfall, lodged itself in my chest. I smiled politely, but inside something shifted. Lucky? No, it wasn't luck. It was my sacrifice. That evening I sat at my desk with a stack of old papers. I dug through emails, receipts, and bank statements. Slowly the pieces began to align. The tuition refund I had transferred to her account matched the timeline of her first investment. The dates lined up too perfectly. My stomach twisted as I realized the truth. She had built her empire on the foundation of my abandoned dreams. I confronted her days later. Calmly at first. Did you use my tuition money to start your business? I asked, standing in her office, surrounded by glass walls and polished furniture. She leaned back in her chair, smiling faintly. You misunderstood, she said. It was all for us. But look at what I've built. Isn't it worth it? Her eyes betrayed her. No remorse, only pride. I felt the betrayal sink deeper, not just financial but emotional. She had taken my trust, my future, and turned it into her triumph. I left her office without another word, my heart pounding, my mind racing. That night I began journaling. I wrote down everything: dates, conversations, feelings. I needed clarity. I needed to make sense of the manipulation. Each entry sharpened my anger but also my resolve. Weeks later I scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor. He was a kind man with graying hair and a steady voice. I laid out the documents, the transfers, the timelines. He studied them carefully, adjusting his glasses. You're not imagining this, he said finally. The funds were redirected. She used them as seed money. Without that, her business wouldn't have taken off. His words confirmed what I already knew. My sacrifice had been the cornerstone of her empire. I asked him what I could do. He explained options: legal routes, financial claims, public exposure. Each path carried risks, but each offered a way to reclaim what was mine. I walked home that evening with a strange mix of emotions. Anger, yes, but also clarity. I realized I had a choice: confront her publicly or reclaim my life quietly. Either way, I would not remain silent. The days that followed were filled with tension. I avoided her calls, her invitations, her cheerful texts. At work I struggled to focus, my mind consumed by the decision ahead. My colleagues noticed the change. One asked if I was okay. I smiled faintly, saying I was fine, but inside I was anything but. One evening I attended a networking event for young professionals. She was there, of course, standing at the center of the room, surrounded by admirers. I watched her laugh, shake hands, and speak about innovation. My stomach churned. A woman beside me whispered, "She's incredible, isn't she? Built everything from nothing." I turned to her, my voice steady. "Not from nothing," I said. "From someone else's sacrifice." The woman blinked, confused, but I didn't explain. I simply walked away. Back home, I sat at my desk again, staring at the lamp that had become my companion through sleepless nights. I thought about the years I had lost, the dreams I had abandoned, the trust one had misplaced. And I thought about the empire she had built, standing tall on the foundation of my silence. I picked up my pen and wrote one final line in my journal. "I will not be quiet anymore." The next morning I called the financial advisor. "I'm ready," I said. He didn't ask which path I had chosen. He simply replied, "Then let's begin." The morning after I told my advisor I was ready, I sat at my desk with a notebook open, the lamp casting its steady glow across the pages. For the first time in years, I wasn't writing about betrayal. I was writing about possibility. I listed courses I wanted to take, professors I could reconnect with, grants I might apply for. Each word felt like a step forward, a small victory carved out of the wreckage. I enrolled in online classes that week. The first lecture was streamed late at night, and I sat in my guest room with headphones on, scribbling notes like I had never left school. My heart raced with excitement, not fear. I wasn't waiting for her approval anymore. I was reclaiming my path, one assignment at a time. Days turned into weeks, and I reached out to old professors. Some remembered me, their voices warm with recognition. "You always had potential," one said. "I'm glad you're back." Their encouragement fueled me. I applied for grants, filled out forms, wrote essays about resilience. Each submission felt like planting seeds in soil I thought had long gone barren. But I knew reclaiming my life wasn't just about education. It was about truth. One evening, I sat down and wrote a detailed account of what had happened. Not to shame her, not to destroy her, but to protect others from the same manipulation. I described the sacrifice, the silence, the empire built on my tuition. I shared it anonymously online, my hands trembling as I clicked publish. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from strangers. People who had been tricked, manipulated, silenced. Their stories mirrored mine in different ways, and for the first time I felt seen. I wasn't alone. My pain had a chorus, and together we were stronger. I felt powerful, not bitter. Strong, not broken. Of course she found out. She stormed into my apartment one evening, her heels clicking against the floor, her voice sharp. "What did you do?" she demanded. "Do you have any idea how this makes me look?" I stood tall, meeting her gaze. "I told the truth," I said simply. Her eyes narrowed. "You're jealous. That's all this is. You couldn't succeed, so you're trying to drag me down." I shook my head. "No. I'm done being quiet. Your empire may be built, but mine is rising, and it's built on truth." She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. Her silence was louder than any apology she could have offered. After that confrontation, something shifted inside me. I no longer feared her power. I no longer felt small in her shadow. I was free. Weeks later, I received an email from a local college. They had read my account and wanted me to speak at an event about resilience and betrayal. My hands trembled as I read the invitation. Me, standing at a podium telling my story? The day of the event, I walked into the auditorium with my notes clutched tightly. Students filled the seats, their faces curious, expectant. I stepped onto the stage, the lights warm against my skin, and looked out at the crowd. "My name is not important," I began. "What matters is the lesson I learned. Betrayal can break you, but it can also sharpen you." I spoke about sacrifice, about silence, about the courage to reclaim what was mine. I saw heads nodding, eyes glistening, pens scribbling notes. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. I felt the weight of my journey lift, replaced by the freedom of reclaiming my voice. Afterward, students approached me, thanking me, sharing their own struggles. One young woman said, "I was about to give up on my degree. But hearing you today, I think I'll keep going." Her words filled me with a quiet joy. My pain had become someone else's strength. Back home, I sat in my living room, the lamp glowing softly, the rug warm beneath my feet. I thought about the journey, the sacrifice, the betrayal, the fight, the resolution. My sister may have stolen my beginning, but she didn't get my ending. That I wrote myself. I rebuilt my life with purpose. I learned that bitterness can consume you, but truth can set you free. I carried the lesson with me into every decision, every step forward. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. And though scars remained, they were reminders of strength, not weakness.